The storm outside howled like a beast. Rain hammered against broken stone walls, and lightning flashed across the ruined sky inside the ancient alien temple. The air was cold and heavy. Shadows moved across the cracked pillars as water dripped from the ceiling. The human Ethan tightened the strap of his pack and stepped carefully over the uneven floor. He had come here for relics, for signs of history long forgotten. But what he found was something he never expected. A sound stopped him. At first, it was faint, a whisper almost lost under the growl of thunder. He froze, his breath held. Then it came again, soft, trembling, desperate. "Help me," the voice echoed through the hall. A woman's voice, filled with fear. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He raised his flashlight, sweeping it across the dark chamber. Broken carvings stared back at him from the walls, faces of gods long dead. He took a slow step forward. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice low. His words bounced back at him, swallowed by the vast emptiness. Then, from behind a fallen statue, something shifted. He heard a weak cry. His pulse quickened. He rushed forward, pushing the heavy stone aside, and there she was, an alien woman. Her skin pale with a faint silver glow, lay collapsed on the ground. Her long hair clung to her face, soaked with rain and dirt. Strange glowing marks ran across her arms and neck, like symbols cut into her very flesh. Her eyes opened, wide and bright like stars. She looked at him not with anger, not with suspicion, but with pure desperation. "You, human," her voice cracked. "Please, help me." Ethan dropped to one knee beside her. "What happened to you?" he asked, but she shook her head, trembling. "No time," she whispered. Her hand reached out, clutching his sleeve with surprising strength. They will come. "The ceremony, it begins tonight. If they find me here." Her words broke off as a sudden boom echoed through the temple, the sound of a distant drum. One beat, then another. Slow, heavy, threatening. Ethan's stomach turned. "What ceremony?" he asked quickly. Her lips trembled. "The ceremony of death." The drumbeat grew louder. She tried to rise, but her legs gave way. Ethan caught her before she could fall. Again, she was light, almost fragile, but her body trembled with pain. "They marked me," she said, pointing weakly to the glowing symbols across her skin. "I was chosen, offered to the fire gods, but I ran. I couldn't let them take me." Her breath came quick, her chest rising and falling fast. Ethan could feel her fear, raw and sharp. "Why me?" he asked, his voice firm. "Why call for me?" Her eyes locked on his. "Because you are not one of them. You do not believe their lies. You might fight them. Please, stand for me. If they take me back, I will not survive the night." The drums pounded harder. Now, echoes filled the halls. Ethan's heart raced with them. He glanced toward the broken doorway, where faint torchlight flickered in the distance. They were coming. He looked back at the alien beauty in his arms. Her face was pale, her eyes shimmering with tears. She was pleading, her body shaking, her hand clutching his sleeve like it was the only thing keeping her alive. Ethan knew he had a choice. He could leave her, walk away into the storm, and never look back. Or he could stay and face whatever horror the ceremony of death was. But the moment she whispered again, "Please, don't let me die," the choice was already made. He stood, lifting her carefully into his arms. Her warmth pressed against his chest, fragile but real. She buried her face against him, trembling. The drums thundered louder. Shadows of figures moved at the edge of the torchlight. Ethan tightened his grip on her and stepped back into the deeper shadows of the temple. The ceremony had begun, and now he was part of it. The torchlight grew stronger. Shadows stretched across the temple floor as the sound of boots echoed closer. Ethan pressed himself against a cracked wall, holding the alien woman tight against his chest. Her breathing was fast, shallow, almost panicked. "They are here," she whispered, her silver-marked skin glowing faintly in the dark. Ethan looked at her carefully now. The glowing symbols weren't random scratches. They were carved lines, forming circles, spirals, and strange letters he couldn't read. They pulsed faintly, as if alive, responding to the rhythm of the drums outside. "What do these mean?" he asked quickly, pointing to the marks. Her eyes filled with shame. "Mark of sacrifice," she said. Her voice broke. "They cut it into me, so the gods would recognize me. Once marked, no one can hide. No one can escape." The sound of chanting filled the air. Ethan could hear the language low, sharp, almost like growls mixed with prayer. He peered through a crack in the wall. A group of robed aliens entered the hall, holding torches. Their eyes glowed in the firelight, scanning every corner. The alien woman trembled. She grabbed his arm. "You must leave me. If they find you with me, they will kill you too." Ethan shook his head firmly. "Not happening." Her eyes widened at his answer, as if no one had ever spoken to her like that before. For a moment, she seemed to forget her fear, staring at him with something close to wonder. Then one of the robed figures raised a hand. A glowing crystal in his palm pulsed, casting red light across the chamber. The others spread out, searching with deadly patience. The crystal's glow moved like a hunter's eye. Sweeping across the walls, the alien woman gasped softly, "The Seeker Stone, it will find me." Ethan's jaw tightened. He knew they couldn't stay hidden much longer. His eyes darted to the far side of the chamber. A collapsed staircase led deeper into the temple. It was risky, but it was the only chance. He leaned close, his whisper sharp. "Can you walk?" She shook her head weakly. "My legs, no." Ethan cursed under his breath. He adjusted his grip and lifted her again, cradling her weight against him. Her glowing marks flickered under his touch, warm like fire beneath the skin. The crystal's red light swept closer. One of the robed aliens growled in triumph. "They sense me," she whispered, terror in her voice. "They will not stop until I burn." Ethan carried her toward the broken stairs. Stones shifted under his boots, threatening to give way. The chanting grew louder. A voice boomed across the chamber, "Return the marked one. The ceremony cannot begin without her." The alien beauty clutched Ethan's shoulder. "You don't understand. If I am not given, the wrath will fall on everyone. They will hunt us both until death. Then let them hunt." Ethan muttered, his teeth clenched. Behind him, torches flared brighter. The robed figures saw movement. A cry went up deep, guttural, furious. The drums outside thundered like rolling thunder. Ethan forced his way up the broken steps, carrying her through dust and rubble. Every muscle in his body burned, but he didn't stop. The alien beauty pressed her face against his chest, whispering broken words. "You, human, why risk this? Why fight for me?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. His only thought was survival. At the top of the stairs, he stumbled into another vast chamber. This one was different, its walls covered with carvings of fire and blood. At the center stood a stone altar, blackened with old ashes. The alien beauty's eyes widened in horror. "No, this is the altar of the ceremony." Before Ethan could move, a heavy door slammed shut behind them. Chains rattled. The robed figures filled the chamber. Torches raised high. Their leader stepped forward, holding the glowing seeker stone. The light fell upon the alien woman in Ethan's arms, and the crowd roared in triumph. The leader's voice boomed like thunder. "The marked one has returned, and with her, the outsider who dares to defy the gods." Ethan's heart pounded. He tightened his grip on the alien beauty, glaring at the mob. He was trapped inside the very heart of the ceremony of death. The roar of the crowd shook the chamber. Torches hissed, smoke curled toward the high ceiling, and the smell of burning oil filled the air. Ethan's arms were pulled behind his back, heavy chains clamping around his wrists. Cold metal cut into his skin as the robed guards forced him forward. The alien woman cried out, struggling against the hands that gripped her. Her voice echoed through the hall. "Stop. He is not one of us. He should not take part in this." But her words were drowned under the chant of the crowd. Blood for the fire, flesh for the gods. Ethan was dragged to the altar. The black stone was cracked and stained with old ash. Strange carvings of flames and beasts covered its surface, glowing faintly as if alive. He was thrown onto his knees before it, the chains rattling loud in the silence that followed. The alien woman was forced to her knees across from him. Her glowing marks shone brighter now, pulsing with the rhythm of the drums. Her eyes met his, filled with fear, but also with something else, guilt. The leader of the cult stepped forward. His robe shimmered with gold threads, and in his hand, he carried the Seeker Stone. He raised it high, and the light spilled across Ethan's face. "The outsider has touched the marked one," the leader declared. "He too must face the ceremony of death." The crowd roared again. Hands slammed against the stone pillars. The fire at the center of the hall blazed higher, sparks flying into the air. Ethan forced himself to stay calm. His chest rose and fell heavy with each breath. He looked at the alien woman again. Her lips trembled, as if she wanted to speak, but fear kept her silent. The leaders circled them slowly. "The ceremony demands pain. The ceremony demands blood. You will give both." A guard stepped forward, holding a long curved blade. Its edge glimmered in the firelight. The crowd fell silent as the blade was lifted, its tip pointing at Ethan's chest. The alien woman cried out again, this time louder. "No, take me. I am the one marked. He is only a human." The leader stopped and turned to her. His face was shadowed by his hood, but his voice was like iron. "The gods do not care who you beg for. He stood with you. He will burn with you." Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. His mind raced. The chains were tight, the guards were strong, and the altar behind him was hot, as if fire burned inside the stone itself. The leader raised his hand. The drums fell silent. The blade was lowered, its edge grazing Ethan's skin. The alien woman screamed, fighting against the guards that held her down. Her voice broke, her silver hair falling into her face. "Human, you cannot win this. Please, give up." But Ethan lifted his head, his eyes locking onto hers, and in that instant, something shifted. He smiled. It wasn't madness. It wasn't bravado. It was the smile of someone who refused to break. "You said no one survives this ceremony," Ethan said, his voice steady. "Then maybe it's time someone did." The crowd hissed in shock. The leader's hand froze in midair. The alien woman's breath caught in her throat, and then the blade slashed down. Chains rattled. Sparks flew. The fire roared higher, brighter than before. But Ethan did not fall. Instead, the entire altar trembled beneath them, shaking as if something beneath the stone had awakened. The crowd gasped in terror. The leader staggered back, eyes wide, and the alien woman whispered through trembling lips, "This has never happened before." The altar shook beneath Ethan's knees. The carvings along its black surface glowed red, cracks spreading like veins of fire. The crowd pulled back in fear, their chanting breaking apart into nervous whispers. The leader of the cult lifted his Seeker Stone, shouting above the chaos, "The gods have awakened. The trial begins." Ethan's chains snapped open, not by the guards, but by the altar itself. The metal clattered to the ground. He staggered to his feet, his hands free at last. For a heartbeat, he thought he might escape, but then the floor opened in a circle around him, and a dozen warriors stepped forward. They were tall, armored in bone and steel, each carrying a long curved blade that shimmered in the firelight. Their eyes glowed like embers, fixed only on him. The alien woman screamed from where she was held. "No, not this. No one survives the trial of blades." The crowd roared again, all fear now replaced with hunger for blood. They stamped their feet and beat their chests as the warriors closed in around Ethan, forming a deadly ring. Ethan clenched his fists. He had no weapon, no armor, just his bare hands and his will. His heart thundered in his chest, but his jaw tightened. He would not bow. The first warrior lunged. A blade sliced toward his throat. Ethan dropped low, rolling across the stone floor. The blade missed by inches, sparking against the altar. He came up on one knee, grabbing a loose shard of stone and hurling it into the warrior's face. The alien staggered back with a snarl. The crowd screamed with excitement. Another warrior rushed him. Ethan caught the alien's arm, twisting hard until the curved blade fell free. He snatched it before it hit the floor, spinning around with surprising speed. The blade felt heavy in his hands, but alive like it belonged to the trial itself. The alien woman's eyes widened in shock. For the first time, she whispered, "He fights like one of us." The warriors closed in, their movements sharp and ruthless. Ethan slashed, blocked, ducked, his body driven by pure instinct. Each clash sent sparks flying. Sweat burned his eyes, but he refused to stop. The leader raised the Seeker Stone high, his voice booming. Spill his blood. The trial ends when the outsider falls. But Ethan did not fall. He moved faster with every strike. His body pushed beyond its limits. A blade grazed his arm, pain seared his skin, but he fought harder. He kicked one warrior into another, their blades clattering against the stone. The alien woman cried out, her voice breaking with hope and fear. "Human, don't stop. Don't give them your life." The crowd had never seen such defiance. Their chants turned into confused shouts. Some called for his death. Others cried out in awe. Ethan's blade locked against a warrior's weapon, sparks spraying as the two pushed against each other. His muscles screamed. His knees trembled. But then he roared, breaking the lock and driving his blade into the stone floor between them. The altar shook again, fire bursting from the cracks. The warriors froze. The crowd gasped. The trial was no longer in their control. The leader's eyes widened with rage. "This is forbidden. The gods will punish us all." Ethan stood in the center of the ring, chest heaving, the blade still in his grip. Flames licked at the altar, wrapping around him like a crown. He looked at the leader, his voice rough but steady. "Then let them try." The fire roared higher, drowning out the screams of the crowd. And above it all, the alien woman whispered, half in terror, half in wonder, "No outsider was ever meant to reach this far." The fire rose higher round the altar, licking the walls like living serpents. The crowd fell back in terror. Some covered their faces. Others dropped to their knees, crying out prayers. The flames were not normal. They bent and shifted, forming strange shapes in the air, as if whispering secrets only the chosen could hear. Ethan stood in the middle of it, the curved blade still in his hands. His chest heaved, sweat dripping down his face. But the fire didn't burn him. It wrapped around him, curling close, almost like it was testing him. The alien woman stared at him, her glowing marks pulsing faster. Her voice trembled. This cannot be. No outsider can walk through the flames of judgment." Ethan looked at her, his jaw tight. "Flames of judgment." She nodded quickly, her silver hair sticking to her damp face. "They are not fire. They are illusions, traps for the mind. They burn only those who believe in them." Ethan's eyes narrowed. He looked around. The flames hissed, leaping closer. Yet his skin felt only warmth, not pain. He thought of the warriors who had once stood here. Maybe they screamed and burned not because of the fire, but because they believed it would consume them. The cult leader stepped forward, raising the seeker stone. His voice thundered across the chamber. "Face the truth, outsider. Step through the fire. If you are weak, your flesh will melt. If you are strong, your mind will break." The crowd roared in agreement, stamping their feet. The warriors spread out, forming a circle round the fire. There was no escape, only forward. The alien woman reached out, her chains rattling as she shouted to him, "Do not trust what you see. The fire will twist your fears. It will show you death. If you give in, you will never return." Ethan's grip on the blade tightened. His throat felt dry, his heart pounding. He had survived their blades, their chains, their chants, but this was different. This was not a fight of strength, it was a fight against himself. He stepped forward. The flames parted slightly, making a narrow path. Heat pressed against his skin, but still no pain. His mind whispered doubt. What if she lied? What if the fire is real? Then he heard it. A voice, soft, familiar. It wasn't hers. It was his mother's, long dead. Gone years ago. The fire formed her shape, her hand reaching toward him. "Ethan, come to me. Rest. Let the pain end." His knees weakened. The blade trembled in his grip. His throat closed as memories surged, nights of hunger, the sound of his father's silence, the loneliness he carried through the years. The alien woman screamed, "No, do not listen. It is the fire. It feeds on your heart." Ethan clenched his teeth. He raised the blade and slashed through the illusion. His mother's image broke apart into sparks. The fire howled around him, angry. Another vision formed. The alien woman on her knees, her face twisted with betrayal. "You doomed me, human. You let me die." Ethan's chest tightened. He took a deep breath, shaking his head. "Not real," he growled. "You're not real." He pushed forward, step after step, through the fire. Every shadow reached for him, every voice tried to break him. But he kept moving. His mind screamed. His body staggered, but still, he walked. And then silence. The fire vanished, leaving only smoke and ash. The chamber was quiet. The crowd stunned into silence. Ethan stood on the far side of the altar, his blade at his side, his body trembling but unbroken. The alien woman's chains slipped from her hands as she gasped. Her eyes glistened with tears, not of fear, but of awe. He walked through the flames, the cult leader's face twisted with rage. His voice shook with fury. "This is blasphemy. No outsider can break the flames of judgment. This cannot be." The crowd was no longer chanting. They were whispering. Some stared at Ethan in fear, others in wonder. A seed of doubt had entered their hearts, and the altar glowed brighter. From its cracks, golden light spilled out, forming symbols Ethan didn't understand. The same symbols that glowed on the alien woman's skin. The alien woman's lips parted, her voice soft. "The altar, it responds to him." Ethan turned to her, his breathing heavy, his eyes locked on hers. "Then maybe it doesn't want a sacrifice." The chamber shook with a deep rumble. Golden light pulsed from the cracks in the altar, climbing the walls like rivers of fire. The crowd, once loud and hungry for blood, now stood in stunned silence. Some bowed their heads, afraid to look. Others whispered, eyes wide with doubt. Ethan stood tall, blade in hand, smoke curling around his shoulders. His chest rose and fell with every heavy breath, but his eyes burned with defiance. The alien woman stared at him as if seeing him for the first time. The marks on her skin glowed brighter, pulsing in rhythm with the altar itself. It was as if their lives were tied together by some unseen thread. The cult leader raised the seeker stone, his voice trembling but fierce. "Do not be deceived. The outsider has tricked us. The gods do not choose humans. They choose only us." But even as he shouted, the crowd hesitated. The altar's light shone too brightly to ignore. Murmurs spread like wildfire. What if the gods did choose him? Have we been lied to? Why does the fire obey him? The alien woman's chains rattled as she struggled against her guards. "Ethan, you broke their trial. They fear you now." The leader's face twisted with rage. He turned to the elders seated high upon stone thrones at the edge of the chamber. Their robes were darker, their eyes cold as night. They had not moved since the trial began. But now, one elder rose slowly, his voice carrying like a blade. "The outsider is dangerous. If the gods have touched him, then he threatens our power. He must not live." The other elders nodded in grim silence, and then Ethan felt it. The air thickened. The ground trembled. From the far side of the chamber, a gate of black stone began to open. Chains rattled as a massive cage slid into view. Inside, a shadow moved. Heavy breaths shook the bars. The crowd gasped, stepping back in fear. The alien woman's voice broke. "No, not that. They would not." The gate slammed open. A beast crawled out, its body covered in jagged scales, its eyes burning with fire. For massive arms dragged across the stone, claws sparking as they scraped the floor. It opened its jaws wide, revealing teeth like swords, and roared so loud the temple itself seemed to shiver. The crowd fell to their knees, chanting again, but this time in terror, not worship. The elder who had spoken raised his hand. "If the outsider is chosen, let him prove it against the guardian of the altar. If he dies, the truth dies with him." The cult leader bowed low, his voice sharp with triumph. "The beast will feed tonight." Ethan tightened his grip on the blade. His mouth was dry, but his eyes locked on the monster. He knew this was no illusion. This was flesh and blood, muscle and rage. The alien woman cried out, breaking free from her guard for a brief moment. She stumbled toward Ethan, her hands reaching. "You cannot fight it alone." Her captors dragged her back, but not before she shouted one last warning. "The beast. It was made from those who failed before you." The words struck Ethan like a hammer. This monster was born from the broken bodies of past sacrifices. The beast roared again, the flames on the altar flaring in response. Its massive body lunged forward, claws striking sparks as they tore into the stone. The crowd screamed. The elders watched in silence, and Ethan raised his blade, planting his feet firmly on the shaking ground. His voice was low, steady, unshaken. "Then I'll show them. Humans don't break so easily." The beast charged. The altar glowed brighter than ever, and in that moment, for the first time, Ethan felt the fire answer him. The beast's roar shook the walls, its claws ripped into the stone floor, sending sparks across the chamber. The crowd screamed, some fleeing, others frozen in terror. The elders sat unmoving, their cold eyes fixed only on Ethan. Ethan stood with the curved blade in his hand, firelight dancing across his face. The altar behind him pulsed with golden light, matching the rhythm of his heartbeat. He could feel it now like a living force inside his chest, rising with his rage. The alien woman cried out, struggling against the guards who dragged her back. Her glowing marks flared brighter, as if calling to the same power. Her voice cut through the chaos. "Ethan, the altar answers you don't fight it, use it." The beast lunged. Its claws came down like falling trees. Ethan rolled aside, the ground shattering where he had stood. He leapt up, striking with the blade, sparks flying as it cut across the beast's scales. The monster roared, blood burning, like liquid fire. The crowd gasped. No one had ever wounded the guardian before. The elders hissed in anger. One raised his hand, shouting, "Kill them both. End this before the people lose their faith." The beast roared again, striking harder, faster. Ethan dodged, his muscles screaming, his breath sharp. He knew he couldn't match the beast's strength, but the fire inside him, yes, that was different. He closed his eyes for a split second. The flames that had once tried to break him now swirled in his mind, waiting for command. He raised his blade, shouting with all his strength, and the altar answered. Golden fire burst from the cracks, surging into his weapon. The curved blade glowed like a shard of the sun. The beast lunged again, but this time Ethan didn't dodge. He charged. Their clash shook the chamber. His burning blade cut deep into the monster's chest. Fire exploded outward, consuming the beast in a storm of golden light. Its roar turned into a scream, then into silence, as its massive body collapsed into ash. The chamber fell still. Smoke curled through the air. Ethan stood in the center, his blade blazing with fire, his eyes locked on the elders. The crowd stared. In stunned silence, the alien woman broke free from her captors, running to him. She stumbled, but he caught her, pulling her close. Her glowing marks now pulsed in perfect rhythm with the altar's fire. She looked up at him with tears shining in her eyes. "You broke the guardian. You broke the ceremony itself." The elders rose from their thrones, fury in their voices. "This is heresy. The outsider defiles the gods." But the crowd no longer listened. They had seen the impossible. Whispers turned to shouts. Some fell to their knees before Ethan. Others raised their fists, defying the elders. The altar split, open with a final crack. A column of golden fire surged upward, blasting through the roof into the storm above. Thunder answered, shaking the heavens. Ethan raised his blade high, the fire dancing across it. His voice boomed through the chamber. "No more sacrifices. No more chains. The ceremony is broken." The crowd roared with him, their chants no longer for blood, but for freedom. The elders stepped back, their power crumbling. The alien woman pressed her forehead against his chest, whispering softly so only he could hear. "You saved me. You saved all of us." But human, she lifted her face, her lips trembling, her eyes burning with something deeper. "Now that you've faced death for me, what will you ask in return?" Her question hung in the air, soft, but dangerous, as the firelight flickered around them, and Ethan only smiled. His answer left unspoken. Final cliffhanger: the ceremony is destroyed, the people rise. But the bond between Ethan and the alien woman is only just beginning. Her last whispered question leaves the audience wondering what comes next between them.